DreAllDay.com.
You are now tuned in to the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve is yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you use those personal initiative, that is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us out there, including yourself, especially yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then we put all this together into one bundle, one package, one framework, one mindset, one philosophy. We have streamlined this process, codified our entire system, wrote a book on the subject, a hardcover book at that. We have an open enrollment university, and you are listening to the daily masterclass all under one umbrella. Let's all say it together. It is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today, I'm going to answer a question that was posed to me recently, and I'll tell you about where this question came from and why I decided to talk about it. The topic is, has racism increased since back in the day? Is there more racism going on now than there was back in, let's say, back in the 60s, in the era of the civil rights movement and, the civil rights movement? The reason why I'm talking about this is because several things have occurred that I haven't yet got to speak on since the summer of 2020, when there was a lot of stuff going on. There was a lot of civil unrest going on. I did several episodes talking about several things, from when everything first really popped off in the wake of the George Floyd death that happened in Minneapolis in the summer in late May, and then into everything else that happened after that. I have several episodes I talked about all of that stuff. You can see the full list of episodes of the show if you just go to workonyourgamepodcast.com. Maybe you heard them back when they came out. You might want to listen to them again. But what happened recently is that I was in this app called Clubhouse, which many of you may know about. But Clubhouse is this app that's basically live streaming, but it's audio only. So there's no recordings there. There are no comments there. There's no video. You can't see people. You can see their profile photo and you can see their bio and you can hear their voices, but there's no recording. So to hear someone on Clubhouse, you have to be there when they are there, and there are rooms basically. So a bunch of people can be in a room, have a conversation about whatever you want to have. And I was on Clubhouse and I randomly dropped into a room one day, and there were maybe 10 people in the room, and I just dropped into the room. I don't even remember what the topic was, and I think I actually tapped on the room by accident. So I ended up in the room, and everyone in the room was speaking. Now, sometimes the Clubhouse room can be set up the same way that, for example, this masterclass podcast is set up, where it's one person talking or a few people speaking, and then everyone else is in the audience, and Clubhouse has these functions, listening to them talk. And they can bring people up to ask questions, like a Q&A, send them back to the audience. But there are other rooms where there will be a bunch of people speaking. If there are 10 people in the room, all 10 of them may be available to speak, and they're just talking about whatever subject. So I came into the room, and the moderator immediately engaged me in conversation. And the question he asked me was, Dre, he said, Dre, what's going on? I said, what's up? What's the topic? What y'all talking about? And he said, well, we're talking about if there's more racism going on nowadays than there was back in the 60s. And I'm going to tell you, I answered the question there, and there was some lively conversation that happened as a result of my answer and other things that people were saying in that room. But I want to answer it here today because I think this is an interesting conversation. And I think starting from what happened in the summer of 2020, moving forward, and I think for the foreseeable future, this will always be a relevant conversation. Whether you enjoy it or not, this is going to be a relevant conversation. So I think even if you're not comfortable with it, we should all get comfortable with it because it ain't going away. So let's get right into it. Point number one. The topic, once again, is, has racism increased since back in the day? Is there more racism going on now than there was back in the day? My answer to the question is no. No, I do not think there is more racism happening now than there was. Now, I was born in the 80s, so I wasn't alive in the 60s. I don't think racism has steadily increased, let's just say in the years that I've been alive. All right, so I was 80, 90, 2000. So I've been on the earth for what, is that 5 decades? 80, 90, 2000, 2010s, yeah. No, so I've been on earth for 5 decades. I'm not 50 years old, but I've been on earth for 5 decades. I do not believe racism has increased, but here's what I do think has increased. And this is what, I don't think I said it as articulately right there in that Clubhouse room because I wasn't even expecting the question. But now that I had a chance to think about it, here's what I do think has increased is the conversation about racism. There's definitely a lot more people talking about it these days than there was in the 80s and in the 90s and even in the 2000s. And there are a lot more people looking for racism than there was back in those previous decades. It seems like everyone's on the lookout for racism these days, especially certain groups of individuals. They're just on hunt for racism because they have used it, they've weaponized it. I talked about these people. I talked about it right here on the show that we have people that I call race hustlers, and their gig is to find or identify or create, even if they have to, racism within another person or an institution or organization. Then they go point it out to the sheep who don't even get the information for themselves, and then the sheep go and amplify it, and then it becomes a big news thing, and then this is being weaponized politically in many other ways. And I've talked about none of this stuff is new. All right, everything that I'm saying here, I've been talking about this stuff. None of this is a new idea, but I'm putting it all together here and answering this question. So some of the points that I'm making are not new. Let me put it a different way. I haven't had this exact conversation yet, but these points, when I talk about not being a sheep, we just talked about that in episode 1696. And I talked about the race hustlers in many episodes of this show here when we talked about all the social justice stuff happening back in the summer of 2020. Just to give you a couple episodes where I talked about social justice, the best things that white folks can do to promote social justice. I talked about episode 1632. 2 days earlier, I told you how some social justice warriors who are white are sending black folks backwards, and it's not their fault. It's kind of not their fault. It's actually we'll make it 50-50 whose fault it is. And I talked about that again. It's episode 1632. In episode 1618, I told you what black people could do with the social justice movement. So anyone who wants to know how I feel about those points, they are all on the record, and everything I say on this show is 100% on the record. So you can hold any of it against me if you want to. You can go listen to those episodes in full context at the places that I just told you. If you just go to workonyourgamepodcast.com. So anyway, the point that I made again is that I don't think racism has increased. I don't think there are more people who are racist now than there were before. And I don't think whoever is racist, I don't think they become more racist. I think if someone was a racist 20 years ago, they're still racist now at about the same level that they were before. The difference is more people are talking about racism, and most of the time the people talking about it are doing more accusing than they are actually admitting to being racist, even though there are a bunch of racist people who spend their day accusing other people of it. Maybe we'll get to that later. And then there are people who are looking for it. I think the seeking of racism and the pointing out of quote unquote racism and the teaching of, oh, this thing is racist and this thing is not, that is way up. All right, that's shooting up like cryptocurrency over the last, I would say definitely over the last year, but let's just say the last 5 years, that has shot up incredibly. There's a lot more people talking about racism. So for example, I think it's increased 100-fold is what the way that I would describe it. But in that Clubhouse room, for example, the room that sparked this very episode, when I answered the question, no, I do not think racism is up. And I said, I just think more people are talking about racism. That's it, case in point. I just came into this Clubhouse room. Y'all are all in here. It was, I think, maybe 8 black people, 2 white guys, but they all knew each other. A lot of them knew each other. The 2 white guys knew the moderators of the room. I guess they went to school together or something like that. I later found out in context. But I said, y'all are in here just talking about racism. Who was doing this 10 years ago? Even 10 years ago, who was just in a room just talking about, hey, how much racism is going on in the world? And what was the end that they were trying to get to? I don't believe there was one. I think they were just talking about it because this is what people do these days. Talk about it, but there's no actual plan or anything like that. It's just a conversation that they're having just to have it. And when a new person comes in, they just want to hear what I had to say. So here's what happened. I answered no. And of course, I got pushback from the people in the room. All right, you could probably already guess that. So some people in the room started to push back against, not everybody, but a few people. And as I said, it was mostly 10 people. It was about 10 people in there, mostly black. There were 2 woke white guys in there. I found out they were woke once they started to speak. And they were friends of the moderators. And one of the white guys, I remember he had this he was asked, hey, do you think there is, well, actually, no, the conversation goes on and people are pushing back. And I'll tell you what one of these women said that was really entertaining to me, very interesting to me, but I would like to know what you would think about it. But they asked one of the white guys, they said, do you think you are racist, or do you think more racism is going on? Or they were asking him something about his level of racism. One of the white guys in the room, and this is what the white guy said. He went on this about 2 or 3 minute rant, and he admitted that he is inherently racist. And there's nothing that he can do to undo that, and he has to live with that for the rest of his life, that he is racist. And the way that he said it, it was so well worded, and he said it so smoothly that I almost thought he was joking. I didn't know the guy, so when he finished speaking, I unmuted myself and I said, wait, are you being sarcastic or do you actually mean that? And a few people in the room laughed, but he said, I'm known for my sarcasm, but I do actually mean that. I do actually believe the things that I just said. And I thought that was very interesting. And what was funny is one of the women in the room, a black woman, She said, well, see, now a white guy saying it, so now y'all know it's true. And she was not joking. She was not being sarcastic. She really meant that. And I didn't say anything because I wasn't going to get in here and get into a back and forth with her about the complete lack of logic in her making that point, but she actually believed it. But that's what made it interesting to me, and is the reason why I ended up talking about this very topic here on my show. But when I had pushed back and said, well, no, I don't think more racism is going on, a few of the people in the room, mostly it was the females, there was more females than males in the room, they started offering me examples of, all right, Dre, well, you don't think more racism is going on? Let me give you an example. Let me tell you something that happened. So this one girl tells this story. I don't know where she's from or where she lives, but she's telling the story that she was at the grocery store. I am assuming that she's from the hood somewhere, and I'll tell you why, and you'll get it when I give you the context. She's at the grocery store, and she had all of these groceries in her shopping cart. She called it a buggy. I don't call it a buggy. I call it a shopping cart. But she had all these groceries in her shopping cart, and she says, as she's in the store shopping, a white man walked past her, looked at her cart with all the groceries in it, and he said to her, well, Merry Christmas to you. And he said it in kind of that exact tone that I just gave. He didn't say anything else. This is the story that the woman tells. And she said, that's evidence that he's racist. He's racist. And I said, well, what about that makes him racist? And her explanation was that he was looking in the cart and he saw all those groceries, and she is assuming that he thought, because she had all those groceries, like $100 worth of groceries in her cart, that she must be paying for her groceries with food stamps. That was her assumption. Now, this is not something that fortunately is not something that's on my radar to even have ever been thinking about. But I remember I was telling a friend of mine this story, and before I even finished the sentence, he filled in a sentence and he had it in his mind. So I am sure that this is a thing in certain places. So this woman is saying that this guy was assuming I was paying with food stamps. I'm like, yo, he didn't say anything but Merry Christmas to you. He didn't say nothing about your money. He didn't say nothing about what you have in your car. He didn't say anything. He just said Merry Christmas. And then she goes on to say, well, sometimes I go to this grocery store and I notice that the clerks at the register, when a black person comes up and they got a little bit of food, the clerk assumes that you're paying with cash. But if they have a whole lot of stuff that they're buying, the clerk assumes that you're paying with EBT, which is the food stamps. And I said, okay, well, if they make that assumption, and my first question was, well, is the assumption true? Because if it is, that's not racism. That's actually is maybe you can call it an unconscious bias, but it's just pattern. It's pattern recognition. You notice that when somebody has a lot of groceries, they pay with EBT, and when they have a few, they're paying with cash. That's just a pattern recognition that allows us to conserve energy and attention as human beings. That's just a function of the wiring of being a human. And of course, anyone who knows me, you understand that this is the way that I communicate. This is the way that I get things across. But these people don't know me. I'm just a random face. Again, they can't even see me. They don't know anything about me except what's on my bio, which I doubt they read. And they're just hearing me say these things, and they already have it in their mind before I came into the room that, yes, racism is up and there's more racism going on in the world. And because of the great job that the race hustlers have done out here in the media, they have a lot of people of color so riled up about racism and so convinced of the fact that they're victims of racism that they don't want to hear anything other than, yes, there is more racism going on. So when a black person comes in there and is offering them some logical rebuttals of their accusations of racism, they don't like that too much. So I started to get a good amount of pushback from some of the people in this room in this conversation with this, when I was saying like, yo, that doesn't logically prove anything. Maybe it's unconscious bias, maybe it's a pattern recognition, but none of that proves anything about racism. Nothing actually happened that had anything to do with race there, except the fact that that person was white. The person at the fellow shopper who said Merry Christmas to you, he was white. I don't even know the race of the person at the front register. Let's just assume they were white to make the story more sensational. And I'm offering these logical pushbacks because they invited me into the conversation. And this is what one of the women said. Then one of the women, I think she had enough after about 2 of these rebuttals. And she said to me, Dre, and again, none of us, I don't know any of these people. None of them know me. I'm 100% sure none of them had any idea who I was. And she says, Dre, you seem like one of those black people who don't like black people. This is what she started to go into. And she started to go into a rant, but she got interrupted. And I ended up pushing back against her and letting her know like, come on, like let's not delve into ignorance just because we can't agree. And again, I have master classes talking about this that could probably help her out a lot, but I doubt she would listen. But this is exactly the point that I'm making. there is not more racism going on these days. What's going on is that there are more people, many of whom, not all, but many of whom are emotionally immature and completely devoid of logical thinking skills, who keep talking about racism, and as they talk about it, they're spreading ideas of racism that are not based in anything that makes any sense, but then they're spreading it to other sheep who, just like them, don't think too much. And I told you 3 truths about human beings is that people are lazy, people don't think, and people don't read. All this is on the record, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not making any of this up just for this particular argument. These things I've been consistent with for years. Since these people are the ones spreading a whole lot of this message, what happens is we get more people talking about racism, so it appears that it's going on everywhere, but it's actually not. And that's where I stand on it. But I'm not done. Let's move on to point number 2. Today's topic, once again, is the question of, has racism increased since back in the day? Is racism on the rise? Let me give you a scenario, and I want to know what you think about this. Now, this is a scenario that I posted on, actually, I'll tell you about that after I tell the story. I was in Las Vegas in July of 2020. Me and a couple of my friends were there, and all of us, there's one particular scene. Me and 2 of my friends were waiting for the elevator. We are in you've been to Vegas, you know the casinos and the hotels. We're going upstairs to the pools and the hotel rooms, stuff like that. This casino we were in, I believe this was the Venetian. We're in the Venetian casino waiting at the elevator pit. And you know, it's like 8 elevators, but because of the social distancing and all this stuff that's going on, there's a line waiting to get to the elevators, and they're trying to keep it spaced, and you got the little circles on the floor, stand here. So with your party, with whoever you're with. So we're waiting in this line. Me and my homies are just talking, just chatting each other up, and we're moving up slowly in the line. And I'm looking in front of us and notice what's happening. The party, 2 parties in front of us is like 4 people. It's like a family: man, woman, 2 kids, white family. And then right in front of us, directly in front of us, is one woman by herself. White woman, she's probably about 5'2", and petite woman by herself. And then is us, me and 2 of my boys. I'm 6'4". Both of my guys who are with me are taller than me. One of them 6'5", one of them 6'6". So there's the 3 of us, and then is the white woman, and then is the couple of 4 together. And in the elevators at the Venetian, they had markings in the elevators that said, please, only 4 people to elevator, because they're trying to maintain the distancing and all that stuff. So I'm calculating in my mind, all right, so this family of 4, they're going to get in the elevator. Then the next one that comes is going to be this one white woman by herself, and I'm assuming the 3 of us are going to get in with her. So it'll be the 1, 2, 3, 4 people. So the elevator comes for the family. The family gets in the elevator. There's 4 of them. The woman, she's walking up, and she sees the deal. She could hear us behind her while she's standing in line. And I saw her, and then she saw the family, and I think she did the same math that I had done. So when the 4 people get into that elevator, the family in front of her rather, she, noticing the situation, looks at them and says, hey, mind if I get in with you guys? While at the same time, she quickly prances over into their elevator and gets in with them. So it's actually 5 in the elevator, technically violating the social distancing rules. She gets in the elevator, and doors close, they ride up. 2 seconds later, another elevator comes. Me and my friends, we get in ours and we ride up. When we get in our elevator, I make a tongue-in-cheek joke to my friends, like, yeah, that white woman didn't want to ride in the elevator, these 3 black guys. And then we all laughed about it. And then when I was on my way, I think I recorded this. I recorded it in the hotel room right before I checked out the day that we left Vegas. And I posted this on Instagram. And I told this exact story that I just told you guys. I didn't say the part about the joke at the end, but I just posed the story objectively. And I asked, what do people think? Do y'all think that woman was racist for not getting in the elevator with us? What's your opinion? And the responses that I got from that were very interesting. The majority of the feedback that I got on that post were people saying, yes, that woman was racist. And this was not just from black folks. This was white people. This were white women. These were, of course, males, people of color. They were all saying, not all of them, but let's say I probably got about 50 to 60 comments on that post. I would say 80% of them were people saying, yes, this woman was racist for not getting on the elevator. And a lot of the feedback that I got were people saying, well, you know, if there were a few black folks who just said, well, Dre, you know the deal. You know why she didn't get on that elevator. SMH. Don't act like you don't know why she didn't get on the elevator. Then there were people who went into further explanation and said, even white females who would say, hey, yeah, she was racist because she avoided getting on that elevator with you guys. That seems like no racism to have avoided getting on the elevator. Now, granted, there were some people who left comments also who said, well, listen, I'm a female, and if I saw 3 big guys behind me, whatever color they were, black or white, I would probably avoid getting in the elevator with them too. Just being a female and feeling physically vulnerable, I don't want to put myself in that situation, which I understand. And there are other people who said, well, yeah, she wouldn't have avoided the elevator if there were 3 white guys, but she only did it because they were black guys. And this really perplexed me that people were leaving these kind of comments and just assuming that they could fill in the gaps of what this woman was thinking when the woman never said a word to us. She didn't give us a dirty look. She didn't say she was afraid of us. We didn't say anything to her. All we know are the facts that I presented to you. That she got in the elevator with 4 other people, this white family of 4. She got in the elevator with them, rather than wait for the next elevator, which maybe she would have gotten herself if we didn't want to get in, or she would have been sharing with us. But we have no idea the reasoning behind what she did. We only know what she did. We don't know why she did it. So what I ended up offering, I made a follow-up video where I talked about it, and I gave the context as to what my answer was. And my response was, first of all, we can't just assume that the woman is racist. Just because she's white and we're black and she took action to avoid sharing an elevator, possibly sharing an elevator with us. Those are objectively true. Just because she did that does not necessarily mean that she's racist, does it? No, of course it doesn't. Because maybe she needed to get upstairs real quick because she needed to go to the bathroom. Maybe she was late for a meeting or a Zoom call that she needed to be on. Maybe she was intimidated by black men. We don't know. Maybe she was intimidated by men, period. Who knows? Maybe she had been physically assaulted by a man who was twice her size sometime in her life. And when she sees other men like that, she's triggered and she doesn't want to be around it no matter what color those men are. Who knows why she got in the elevator? We have no idea, and we can't just jump to a conclusion that she's racist just because she's white and we're black. That's crazy. But the fact that, and again, this is in the summer of 2020, when I posed this question, I was giving these answers on social media, it even further drives home the point that I'm making here is that nowadays so many people are assuming, teaching, talking about, and seeking out racism that is more of a conversation. And I even got to throw myself into the conversation. I got to throw myself in that pile in this instance because I'm the one who I saw that. The only people who saw it were me, the 2 guys who were with me, who are not big social media users, that woman who I doubt she posted about it, and I'm the one who made a story out of it. I'm the one who turned it into content by even talking about it on Instagram, and now I'm talking about it now. So I guess I get included in the conversation as well. But all of these are possibilities for why she didn't get on the elevator. We have no idea though. But if we're defaulting to, oh, the only reason she did it is because she's racist, well then, first of all, you're mind reading. You're claiming that you can read another person's mind, the same as this woman in Clubhouse who said, well, the white man who looked at my groceries was assuming I was paying with food stamps when he didn't even say anything about paying at all. He just said, Merry Christmas to you. And I guess the way that she took it sarcastic. If you're defaulting to racism based on that, you're claiming that you had the ability to read another person's mind, and you're judging other people's intent with no evidence to support it, which makes no sense. This is why racism is being talked about so much these days, not because it's happening, but because everybody's looking for it. And this is the sensational thing. This is the thing that's trending. This is the thing that will get you attention. And that's why it appears that so many people are seeking it out these days. Point number 3. Today's topic, once again, is I'm answering the question, is racism on the rise? Is there more racism going on these days than there was back in the day? Point number 3, give you another scenario. And this is one that just happened, I believe this is in early 2021. I read the story in, I believe this was the New York Times. There was a high school kid in, I believe it was Virginia. It doesn't even matter where it was, but there's a high school kid, black kid who's mixed, black mother, white father. In his high school, someone sent him a text of a downloaded video off of Snapchat of a white girl who said the N-word while she apparently was reciting the lyrics from a rap song. And the rapper said the N-word, she said the N-word in the rap, and she recorded it in a private snap that she sent to somebody. Somebody downloaded the snap, and the snap got around, and eventually this half black, half white kid, he gets hold of this video. Now, the girl was his classmate. They were in the same high school. They didn't know each other, but they went to the same high school. He knew who she was when he saw it. Now, the video had been recorded when the girl was a freshman, but he got hold of the video, I believe, either when they were juniors or seniors. But the boy didn't do anything with the video. He just kept it. Then, When the girl was set to announce the school that she was going to be going to, the college she'd be attending, because she was a popular cheerleader and a very successful cheerleader apparently. She announced she was going to the University of Tennessee to be a cheerleader. She was going to be on the cheerleading squad, scholarship, all this stuff. When she announced, that's when the boy who had the video that he saved, he then put the video out with intentions of making this girl look bad, because he knew that video with her saying the N-word, even though she was saying it kind of like in, I guess we could say, in jest and rapping lyrics to a song, he knew that would make her look bad in the context of all the civil unrest that was going on in the summer of 2020. And this happened during that time. This happened during the summer of 2020. So that the boy puts the video out, it gets spread around all over the place. And the girl, basically, the long and short of it is the girl got canceled. And she got canceled in such that a bunch of people started bombing her social media, saying that she was racist for using the N-word in a video 2 or 3 years prior, in which she was singing the lyrics to a song. She also got canceled in that the school that she had been accepted to already, University of Tennessee, told her that she could either reject the acceptance that she had gotten from the University of Tennessee, or the University of Tennessee was going to pull their acceptance. They were going to basically kick her out before she'd even gotten in, just because, and this is what I'm thinking with the University of Tennessee, they were afraid of the blowback that they would get as a university for admitting this white girl who had used the N-word in a video that got surfaced from whatever 3-4 years prior. They were so afraid of the blowback that they would get for accepting someone who would dare use that word in singing a song. Now, the kid who put the video out, this half black, half white kid, the reason that I said that he held on to it with the intent of destroying her was he admitted to that in the article in the New York Times. You can find the article, you can look it up and read it yourself, that he said, listen, I wanted to make sure that she learned a lesson. If I hadn't done anything, if I hadn't put that video out, if I had just kept it or deleted it and not done anything, not said anything, she wouldn't have learned anything and nothing would have happened, and this would have kept going on. So I guess he fashioned himself a social justice warrior, and I would assume that when that article came out, because it had his name in it, his picture was in it and everything, I would assume he took a pretty solid, strong victory lap in the social justice world, social justice community, because of what he done. But I personally, my opinion on that, I think that was weak. I think it was weak because, first of all, that girl didn't do anything to him personally, just on him, for him on a personal level. If I was speaking to him and he asked me, he didn't, but if he did, ask me what I thought about it, I would say to him, listen, if you put that type of energy out to try to hurt another person, there's only a couple ways that I can see it as okay. One, they did something that directly or indirectly hurt you, and you're just getting your revenge, all right? You're getting your payback on that person. Now, I know it's not always necessary to go get payback. It doesn't have to be eye for an eye and all that. But if somebody did want to do that and there's a reason, they have a legitimate reason why they're getting their revenge, I understand. Or the other reason is if you just didn't like this person and they did something to you like in some other way that had nothing to do with race at all, but you just don't like them and you just want to fuck them up just because, but you got a good reason, you can draw a legitimate line from something they did to something you're doing, then I can also respect and understand that. But you didn't have anything to do with this fellow student. They didn't really know each other. They had never had any type of communication. The girl had never done anything racist to him or said anything racist to him or anything. He just did it because he wanted to feel the power of getting somebody else canceled and to establish himself firmly in the social justice world. I consider that extremely weak, and also consider it bad karma, because when you put that kind of energy out to hurt another person, they didn't do anything to you, you can't even justify it. You can't even rationalize it. But his rationalization was, well, somebody had to do something to somebody just to prove something. I don't know. I just don't consider that really good energy for him to have put out. But I guess over time, life will decide whether it was right or whether it was wrong. It's just the way that I saw that. And also, when it comes to the girl, when she got herself canceled, well, he got her canceled. I went and saw the video that the girl had posted. And again, she was rapping lyrics to a song. The video was only like 4 seconds long. And I'm like, I wouldn't, because somebody get canceled off of that. Now, if she was saying the N-word in a derogatory way, in the context of using it in a derogatory, negative way, then I could see, all right, why the University of Tennessee might not want to deal with her, or why her friends might hate her, or why somebody might attack her family or something like that. But she wasn't using it in that way. She was using it in like a fun way, and she was sending a private message. But we all know on the internet, anything can get shared and saved. I just don't think that the context of it was not racist at all. I didn't think the context was racist at all. And then the University of Tennessee. This is how far we've come with the whole racism thing. And that's why this topic is such a conversation, no matter who brings it up, is that the University of Tennessee, politically, they understood that if they let that girl come in after the news came out of what she had done with that video, just that 4-second video, if they let her come in, then the social justice warriors would have attacked the University of Tennessee. So the University of Tennessee did not cancel that girl's acceptance because they deemed what she did was so terrible. That's not the reason they did it. And that's what they'll say. That's the good reason that they'll give for why they did it, because they're like, hey, we stand with the social justice movement and we don't allow any kind of hate speech or negative or racism in our school, so that's why we had to cancel that girl. That's what they said. The real reason that they did it is because they didn't want to have to deal with the blowback themselves. Because if they would have accepted her, they would have dealt with a ton of blowback, and they would have been labeled as a racist university, and then people would have started digging for racist stuff about them and the people in charge there. So those people, to save their own asses, sacrificed that girl's college career. And the last I heard, that in the article, the last I read in the article, it said the girl was taking online classes and living at home she was accepted at the University of Tennessee. And the University of Tennessee is a huge university, and I'm sure it would have been a lot of fun for her. Instead, she's taking online classes at home, while this kid is a social justice lieutenant now. I guess he's been promoted because of what he did. And this is the thing that, here's the funny thing about this point right here. There are people who are listening to me right now, the racism seekers, the race hustlers. They'll be mad at me for quote unquote defending the quote unquote racist white girl, just because I said the things that I just said. Even though if there's anything that I just said that is, you can point out a logical fallacy in anything that I said, knowing the facts of the situation off that New York Times story. That's the only part that I know. I didn't read anything else, just that New York Times story, trusting the New York Times. I do trust them on anything other than politics. Then you tell me, you let me know what that is. Let's move, and this is the hustle. So somebody who is a racism seeker finds this and gets mad at me for saying it, understand them getting mad is part of their hustle, because that's how they maintain their relevance, and that's how they keep other people paying attention to them, because their job is to go find things that are racist and get sheep riled up about it. It's hard to get sheep riled up, but this one works. Point number 4. Today's topic, once again, is the question: is racism on the rise these days? Number 4, let's not have all this discussion without allowing for the possibility that, hey, maybe Dre is the person who's out of touch. Hey, maybe I'm the one who's just not noticing all the racism that's going on these days. Maybe I'm just not paying attention. Maybe I'm just tucked away in this space in which racism just does not affect me, and I'm just simply not paying attention. Maybe I'm just blind to what's going on. Maybe racism is everywhere. Maybe I'm just not looking closely enough. Maybe people are being racist and showing microaggressions towards me every single day, and I'm just not picking up on it. That is 100% possible. All right, we gotta leave the floor open to the possibility that maybe the one talking is the one who is the most blind out of everybody. All right, maybe success has made me immune to racism. That's completely possible. Maybe I'm friends with and work with and deal with so many white people that I've been blinded to the microaggressions of racism, and it's been normalized in my mind. All right, so maybe that's what it is. I'm gonna just throw this disclaimer out here as point number 4. Point number 4 is just my disclaimer, just in case anybody wants to say, well, Dre, maybe you're the idiot. You're the one who's not paying attention. Now I said it myself, so now you got it. Just so I think that might be a bone that I can throw to the race hustlers before they try to, if someone wants to try to take anything I said here out of context. But that's why I do this show every single day, and I put everything that I believe on the record in these shows, and it's all at workonyourgamepodcast.com. So you don't have to take me out of context, put me in full context. And nobody's tried to attack anything that I said by putting me in full context, because it's goddamn impossible. So let's recap today's class, which is the question of, has racism increased since back in the day? Talking about this, it was sparked by a clubhouse room that I was in, and someone asked this exact question. My answer, number 1, no. Racism has not increased, but the conversation about racism, people seeking racism, has definitely increased 100-fold. And that's what has happened these days and why so many people are talking about it. And it seems like it's everywhere. I don't think it's everywhere. It just seems people are looking for it everywhere. So if you look for anything hard enough and long enough, you are guaranteed to find it. Point number 2. The scenario that I told was being in Vegas on an elevator. A white woman avoided being in an elevator with us, got in an elevator with a white family instead of sharing the elevator with us, even though that would have been along the lines of the physical distancing rules. Was it racism? Maybe. But we can't label it racism and claim that we can read that woman's mind and why she got in the elevator. It could have been many reasons why she did it. And why do we have to default to racism? Simply because everyone has been conditioned to default to racism. Point number 3. Another scenario was these high school kids, this black mixed kid saw a video of a white girl using the N-word 2 or 3 years earlier, used that video to cancel her as soon as she announced her college plans. And he took a victory lap for this. He felt accomplished because he had done something to cancel somebody else's life situation, at least at that point. And the girl wasn't even doing anything that was racist. She used a word that she probably shouldn't have used, but she wasn't doing anything that was racist. And this is something that people get mad at me for, quote unquote, defending her, because I don't think there was anything objectively racist about what she did. And this is their hustle. Point number 4. But all this discussion being said, let me not blind myself to the fact that maybe I'm completely the idiot in this situation, and I'm completely blind to the microaggressions that are happening every single day, and that I've dealt with so many white people in a positive way, and I don't even notice the racism anymore, and it's right there in front of me. I'm just blind to it. That's completely possible. If you can help me out with that, send me an email. All right, work on your game. Dre all day.